We're on.
Shalom, shalom, family, wholeness to everyone.
Shalom, shalom.
Uh, what we're going to do today, I know Eitai has another session, so we probably won't be very long today. It's all up to him, so to speak. But nevertheless, what I want to do is to bring our attention to, well, maybe a week or so ago, I had mentioned something about the language name conspiracy. And as I was sending around the video, emailed them out to quite a few of the family concerning the Hebrew language and what was also referred to as our Western Shemitic language. And that caught my eye, and naturally, I try to listen very closely. And I caught something, but again, it takes time for absorption of digestion in order for the revelation to come. So I'm showing it to someone today, and boom, the ancestors activated within me something that I think is very critical for us and very much on point in terms of language. Now, we've been talking about language, what it does. It, particularly this dualistic way of viewing things has been very detrimental to us. And we've been trying to move away from duality into wholeness. And the language is critical. And so it's the revelation I want to share today. And I really appreciate if Eitai could pick up from here and help to expand this, because this is something that is very critical for us at such a time. And I'm going to start with what I titled it, The Language of English is a Veil. Now, I showed this video to a lot of the saints. Probably didn't catch it, but nevertheless, we caught it. The language of English is a veil. We're going to say an anthology of our Native American Israelite heritage. Now, that's foreign to most of us because, again, the profound deception, and I keep saying the brilliance of our ancestors is mind-boggling. When you really, really understand where we are today, and as we make our journey back to our divinity, then it becomes a little bit more simplistic and a little bit more clear as to what occurred and why everybody's going through what they're going through. So we're talking about a Native American Israelite heritage. Now, what is an anthology? And I'm going to give a simple definition. Anthology, as I'm referring to it, is a collection of information, a collection of knowledge, and to synthesizing of this knowledge and then applying it in a holistic way, where that we can get a simple and more direct, intuitive understanding of it. So what we're going to do here, we're going to show how the language of English is a veil. We're going to say the language is a veil, and our language, we would say, Baal. Now, all of us know that in the Hebraic language, you got Aleph, Beit, and then they say Veit. But it's really a double Beit. But according to contemporary language, you take the second Beit and you say it's a Veit. And that reveals something very interesting here. So when you look through the scriptures, you hear contemporary terms around the land today you call Balabai. Now, we've been taught that Baal is a negative, this is a foreign god, you understand? And this is the most utilize name throughout the scriptures by all as supposed as being a foreign God, but it's God, this God concept of Baal is utilized more than any other God throughout the scripture. So that's a question that you have to ask yourself. Why is this foreign God so profoundly, you understand, used throughout the scriptures? So if we stop and think what we are understanding now, our deception has what? Reversed or inverted things. Now we begin to see that all that was made negative really was what our knowledge. It was really referring to us. And we can see now how everything negative has been connected to African, so-called African ancestral people. I'll say ancient ancestral people.
That's correct.
As opposed to. Now, with that said, we go on to say the English language is literally a code that must be broken. Now, I'm not the first to say this. Numerous scholars are saying this. Returning to our language means we must remove the veil. Now, when we go through religion, we know that the veil was always used in the scriptures, and it was said that the veil was to be kept up on the face when Moses went into the Holy of Holies, and when he came out, the veil was to be remained there so that the children of Israel could not look steadfast to the end. So you stop and think about these things. And I'll get, at another time, I'll get into the word instead. It's a very significant word. Maybe you make a note of that, the word instead is used in the Bible, instead. Make a note of that because we're going to get back to that and show you what that really means and how all this is tied together. So we go back now and we consider, why was the name of Baal used so regularly, and even the kings of Israel was what? Using this name. But we have been taught that this is a foreign God. And this God was not to be, you understand, the God that would bring Israel out of their condition. Now keep that in mind. We go on to say here that a veil Abal has a significant meaning here. And we say, and you're going to get the notes, so don't worry about the language. You're going to get the notes. There is no V like in victory, sound in our ancient Western Shemitic language. They replace our native B with the letter B, that I told you about, became they, you know, in the Hebrew language, the B sound with the foreign V in victory sound. So instead of debate, you know, contemporary language, you use the V sound as opposed to the B sound. Very, very important. And I'm going to show you, those that on here that didn't get it, we'll make the video online available to you. And as we continue on, the language name conspiracy. So the language name conspiracy, when we look at it, and this all came to me during this season of the power of the name. Now, the tetragrammaton, Yahweh, we find something strange that occurred when we go back to the 9th century Common Era, when the vowel points was added by Jewish rabbinate. So now, prior to the 9th century, those of us that were speaking in Yeshua, they were speaking Hebrew. They was not using the contemporary vowel points that we know today. Continue on.
Right.
This was called the matrix lexiconic vowel. Now, these are a system that the Jewish rabbinate came up with. Matrix lectionis vowel letter system was invented, so the aleph, the hey, the vav, and the yud was to be used as vowels. Now, listen closely, because this is very important. The aleph, the hey, the vav, as you know it, used to be pronounced wa. Now it's V with the vowel. And the word yud, the letter yud. Now, this is very important, and this is going to raise some controversy, but we must raise controversy because we got to find the truth. Without the truth, we will remain in darkness. Contemporary language. Now, listen to me very carefully here. Contemporary language. Whereas in the Hebrew, the male letter yud, which was not a part of the original language, a vowel point. It became a vowel, the letter yud became a vowel, and its energy begins the name of Yah. Then Yahuwah, the W was, quote unquote, used to be, they left the W sound, Wah, and they didn't use the V sound, Vav. Why did they use the W? They left the W. Then it says, yet in the English we see the feminine energy, earth, is the energy always referred to as opposed to the masculine. Well, why is it feminine? And you know, when we go back to the 60s, something began to happen in the 60s that the feminine began to ask questions about why it had to be a male god.
Right.
This is very important, very important. So we can see where we are, and this is why this has to be raised. When we use the idea such as earth feminine, wind masculine, that's Yah in the contemporary Hebrew language. Fire masculine, you understand, and water feminine. So you got what? The first part of the name Yah is Yud in Hebrew. In English, it is what? Feminine. It's earth. That's the element, earth. Then it's the masculine. Then it's the masculine. And then it's the feminine and water. Feminine water being the last element. But it's masculine, feminine. So it's feminine, masculine, masculine, feminine. No problem with that, because we understand those are energy elements that must be unified. But the question is, why was in the Hebrew, the masculine begins everything, everything. But we are being taught and understand that the feminine energy of the female is primary. So if the feminine is primary, how is it that the masculine became primary? Why is that so significant in the contemporary assimilated world system that we're under? Continuing on, it says, when we use the ideas such as earth, feminine, wind, masculine, fire, masculine, and water, feminine, this is an English conceptual method. Therefore, all of our teachings has been a male concept of God with no thought even mentioned until the 1960s, or the late 60s, 1960s, when questions began to be asked. Why? Why did it have to be just a masculine God? When such knowledge / information come to you, sometimes it brings revelations. In this case and point, the language of English is a veil, thus returning my attention to the language named conspiracy. Because where attention goes, energy flows.
That's correct.
ancestors called my attention to the biblical writings of Isaiah 8:16-20 concerning where we should seek and to whom we must seek to recover the answers and solutions. Now, we read these scriptural references, it clearly speaks to where we should seek. And I read, bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. I'm not going to try to give you any interpretation of it. I'm going to read it, give a brief explanation of these things, because I didn't get a chance to get the Hebrew words and meaning to all of it. But nevertheless, go on, we say, I will wait upon the Lord that hideth his face from the house of Jacob. Now we remember the story of Jacob and Esau.
Okay.
What we call the dominant trait and the recessive trait that took hold within the womb of the mother, and they struggled in the womb, and we had misinterpreted that for many, many years, not understanding what that really meant. Okay. Now, we got to stop today and say, because we got to bring all that back to ourselves. It has to be, the struggle is in you. What do we think the struggle of good and evil, right and wrong, up and down, God and Satan, you know, what you would call in the book of Revelation said the woman travailed in pain to be delivered. She had brought forth a male child, and the male child was to be what? Destroyed by the dragon. So you got the dragon and you understand God. So all these concepts are really things that you are struggling with within yourself. This is what they call a war in heaven. That's how we were taught. So when we continue on with this, we'll see why this knowledge was so-called hidden from Jacob. Then it goes on to say, behold, I and the children whom the Lord has given me are for signs and wonders. Prayer from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. Verse 19, and when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and mutter. Now, here's the key. Should not a people seek unto their, and he says their God here, but we don't understand about this their God, for the living to the dead. So now, we go back and think about the living. You know, we think about the dead. Traditionally, we always saw things from the perspective of religion. We say, well, okay, you were spiritually dead, but we got to understand one thing about this body. The body is an active device. That's what your body is. It's an activation device. The body is utilized to activate the spirit. And the spirit, you understand, activates the body. When the spirit activates the body, or the energy or the thought activates the body, then the body moves. But we've also been taught that the flesh don't profit nothing. So they kept us always external, as opposed to what? Everything being internal.
That's correct.
So it's vital to understand that we must return to ourselves as being the activators of that which was already responsible for bringing that physical into existence, because the physical and the spiritual has to be holistically connected. Other than that, we are doomed. We are doomed. So, closing point. So it says, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And so we've been told that light is intelligence. But as we've gone a little bit further now, and we begin to see light is directly connected to melanin. And melanin is the primary element that absorbs light. That's why we are so significantly involved in this whole process now of reversing things. We are a melanated people. And by our melanation, we have to what? Return to a what I call inner, consciousness, or inner melanated consciousness, in order for us to activate that melanin element within us, to cause us to be able to what? Go within ourselves and activate that which has been lying dormant because of the influence of the foreign knowledge that we had taken into our consciousness, into our system, and that consciousness has been played out through a simulated reality that we thought was an actual process that we had to go through because we were sinful people. No truth at all to it. No truth at all to it. So I'm gonna hold up here, and we're gonna come back at another time and tighten that up. But I just want to bring that point, because we gotta understand now that the conspiracy, was much broader than just you being a evil people, and you just can't have access to, nothing because you the sinful people. That's far from the truth. Far, far from the truth. So language has held a key. It has been shaping us since the very beginning. And as a result of the language that we came under the influence of duality, it has caused us to what? Error in our perception and in our concepting and our understanding and application of what we perceive to be truth was actually, you understand, deception. And as a result, here we are on the line, by no stretch of the imagination at this particular time, bringing clarity to what has happened to us as a species. So Eitai, I'm gonna hold there, and I'm gonna let you pick up from there.
Okay.
Eitai Kolai, I want to add something on to what Nasik had just brought up.
Go right ahead, dog.
Now, if you turn this around, saying Yah, and say Hi Yah, you're saying I am.
Yeah, absolutely correct. That's correct.
And if you turn the bottom round, Hey Bob, as Haba, which means to purge, to be, become. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, we can look at this. I'm just throwing out what the terms would be if you turn them around and put feminine, masculine, where you would have hey Hewitt, hey Bob. You would say I am, then you would say to be. I am to be.
Interesting.
That's what it would be if you turn I am to be.
Kalai, that is such a high point, and it's going to highlight something that I want to get to. Nasik, you had mentioned this confusion with the identity of the Hebrews and connected that to America.
Right.
And this idea of a holistic view, Nasik, is so pervasive and so important and so primary to everything that has to do with our perception. It cannot be overstated enough. We cannot put too fine a point on that or a fine enough point on that. One of the things that plague us in our attaining a correct perception, now see, is the fact that we don't go back far enough and we don't have a comprehensive or again holistic view of what's called the big picture. And the big picture,
Right.
the big picture is a right brain attribute or trait. And by and large, we've been biased toward left brain. So we have to attain a balance in everything that we do. I want to go to Genesis, the 10th chapter, and the 25th verse. And this is a verse, Nasik, that is often overlooked, skimmed over, and almost never considered.
Come on with it.
Because we identify, all of us that are on this call, identify to some extent as Hebrews, correct?
Okay.
But there's never really a thorough understanding of what that means. You know, we give it a doctrinal understanding. That is, we have a religious perception of it as it relates to a belief system, but rarely do we have this comprehensive view that takes us outside of a particular time framework.
Great, great.
So Genesis 10 and 25 reads this way: And unto Eber or Eber were born
Right,
sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days, listen,
right,
the earth divided.
right, right.
So let's take a look at this now. No one ever talks about a unified earth.
Nobody.
We think that the way things are, and I've mentioned this before, Nasi, is the way that they always have been.
Right,
That we have continents, these various continents around the world, what? Separated, divided by water.
right, right.
This verse is stating that it wasn't always like that. This is what they call the theory of Pangea, that it was one holistic earth mass that all indigenous people occupied at a certain point. And if we look here, the name Eber, the root word for Hebrew, where we get that from, is prominent within that context. And the
Right,
context
right.
and the context is that during his generations, or during his lifetime, what happened? The earth, which was whole, was divided. See, this idea of dualism and variety and separation, Nasik, is key to everything in terms of our perception.
Anytime.
So if we have if we can for a moment conceive the world as one holistic landmass, then the idea of back to Africa, or the idea of Africa itself, and the idea of Africa and Europe and America and Greenland and Antarctica and Australia being separate concepts kind of loses its weight and loses its sting.
Okay.
Y'all feeling me?
Mhm.
So it says that Eber lived, it infers that Eber lived during a time period where everything in terms of a landmass was holistic. And then Nasik, it got into dualism and variation and separation. I think this is very instructive.
Fragmentation.
Fragmentation.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to look at this now in the figurative sense to Nasi and the spiritual sense. Because as you said,
Right.
that like causes produce like effects. So
Right.
if we're going back to that time, let us consider that the world was whole and that there was a holistic worldview.
Absolutely.
And our perception followed that in terms of being holistic. There was no concept as far as that's concerned of what? Separation
Right.
or division. But again, this happened. This division happened. And I think this underscores a larger idea. Once you get out of the context of a holistic earth or a holistic world, we get into the concept, Nasik, of holistic thought and holistic perception.
Eitai, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to mention something. The very following scriptural reference right next to where you are verifies what you just said. Genesis, the 11th chapter, verses 1 through 6. It clearly states that right there. That's what you just said.
Absolutely. I was getting there, but that's good. We don't have to go there now. You didn't put the thought out there. But there was, you're talking about the 11th chapter, the Tower of Babel, right?
Right.
So it was an effort to divide. It says that
That's
there was
what
an
that was
effort
about. Right.
to divide because everything was holistic, right?
Right.
And then it was divided. So it stands to reason then our perception became divided. Now you had mentioned the language. This holistic language, Nasi, is of such importance.
Of such importance.
So I want to move us to this. Nasi, I just came across this today, as a matter of fact. And this is going to tie into this, Nasik, is going to tie us into what it is that the major points that you were making about language. I want us to look at something. This is called the Astral alphabet. And now see, this is the actual origin of the Hebrew alphabet.
Okay.
If you look at the extreme right, this is the astral symbols that are connecting that are connected to a corresponding constellation
Uh-huh.
that is in the heavens. All right, that is in the
Gotcha.
heavens. Now, I don't want us to look up in our minds, because all of this, including the language, is internal. It is in us. And if you can comprehend what I'm saying, then it is in you. The first astral letter corresponds to a constellation, and that constellation corresponds to a zoomorphic name, in this case Taurus, the bull or the ox, and it corresponds to a Hebrew letter Aleph, which is an ox or a leader. All right, when we look
Right.
exclusively at the Hebrew language. When you look, now see, at I believe it's the 49th chapter of Genesis. Let me turn to it real quick so I give everyone an accurate yeah, it's the 49th chapter of Genesis. So this is not strange at all that these zoomorphic or animal correspondences were given. Because when we look at, now remember, these are allegorical characters. When we look at Jacob blessing each of his children, right?
Right.
And telling them what would happen in the
In the
last
latter
days,
Right.
he gave them either directly or indirectly a correspondence to something zoomorphic. Judah was a lion's whelp, right?
Right. Right.
Uh, Zebulon or Issachar was a strong ass or a donkey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zebulon was a sea dweller. Now we can
Mm.
make Dan was a serpent, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is not out of the ordinary. We see it in the scriptures, but it was a
Right.
correspondence or a reference to the astral origins of the Hebrew alphabet. So here it is. And the way that we look at these things are energies that correspond with and govern these particular symbols or pictographs. And now, see, we talked about the power of symbols. This is the language, this is the original language. This is the original language. Now, we're not talking about if this script was the original script, but
Right.
we
Right.
understand that these symbols that correspond to what? Zoomorphic creatures and beasts
Right.
are that is the original language. It is
Gotcha.
symbolic. And it can be.
Right.
You gave the reference to the 11th chapter of Genesis where the various languages came from, but it infers and it directly states that everyone at one point was what?
Every,
Of one language.
right. Of one language. Right.
And when we look at Genesis 10 and 25, everyone was on one landmass.
On one landmass. Right.
So we're saying that what? Language, society, civilization, culture, communication, etc., what? Was all unified and holistic.
Right. There we go.
And again, Nasik, this is the goal. This is the goal to access that language so that we can what? Access the higher aspect of ourselves, which is called the divinity or Yahuwah, whatever you want to call it. There is no separation.
None at all.
And what we're showing here is that that holism or wholeness rather or singularity, that is the true nature of reality. That was the true nature of the earth.
Came. Right.
And everything that what? Came from the earth and was upon the earth. Not this simulated reality that is based on duality, that is based on a variety of languages. That Nasik has never helped anyone to do anything.
Absolutely, Eitai. Absolutely.
But disagree.
Right. Disagree.
But disagree. So when we take a closer look, we can see how the astral language, Nasik, no vowel points.
No doubt. Right.
No vowel points directly corresponds to the Hebrew letters. And
That's
they
crystal
all
clear.
correspond to, like the sons of Jacob. And how many sons did he have?
12.
See, that's the 12 signs of the zodiac, which are what?
Yeah.
Zoomorphic representation. See, this is the language of the stars, the language of the galaxy. So what you just read, I and the children of Israel, that Yahuwah gave me for what?
Right.
Signs, seasons. Are you all with me?
That's it.
I think I'm on mute. Am I on mute?
No, you're off of mute now.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to check it because it said muted, but I hadn't hit the buttons, but I'm going to hit them back now.
All right, no problem. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
So now see, this is everything that you've been.
Eitai, you said a word. I just want to call your attention to the word you used a while back. Singularity. I mean, important. Even
Very
in physics,
important.
of a singularity.
Absolutely, very important. So again, when we look at the allegory of Jacob naming his 12 sons, this is strong evidence, Nasi.
Strong evidence.
To the correspondence of an ancient language that what? Exists in the stars and or in the heavens rather. And so the word heavens is the word shemayim. And
Right.
Kabbalistically, that means the fiery waters. And of course, in the scriptures, we talk about the waters above.
Right.
The waters
Mm-hmm.
above corresponding to what? The waters below. And eventually, we're going to decode all of this stuff. But we see, I just want everybody to look and to see the correspondence, because now see, this is eternal. This is the eternal language.
Absolutely, Eitai. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, moving forward. And
Eitai, before you go forward, is it possible that you go back to Eber and kind of expand that a little bit, where most of everybody fell under the Hebrew or Hebrewism and not, you understand, understood the magnitude of Eber in its holistic sense?
okay, everybody Nasik fell under the Hebrew Israelite syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Are you
Right.
all with me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And us as well. We fell under the
Mm-hmm.
Hebrew Israelite,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and this is just not in harmony with this idea of a holistic, singular landmass. And indeed, and we won't do it here, but Nasik, if we follow Eber, we're going to follow him after the earth divided. We're going to follow him to what is called the Americas or the New World.
There we go.
So this is why we've all read this, and we've all heard it, and some of us have taught it, that when the Europeans came to the New World, what they called the New World, that they found natives that were what? Speaking the original language. Now I'm going to get to an excellent point that Doe Kalaya brought up
Excellent.
about, and I'm going to have to find it and bear with me. Okay, here we go. So, does everyone see this? Now, Nasik, you had talked about melanin, correct?
Right.
And see, this is the important thing. We have been instructed by and large, and we have been entrained as believers and as servants and as children and not as metaphysicians, not
Mm.
as alchemists,
Mm.
not as
Come on.
alchemists,
Come on, Eitai.
not as scientists.
Come on,
Right.
Eitai. Come
And
on.
so this is the problem, because
Mm-hmm.
we have Nasik Malkiel a religious understanding of everything.
Right.
Everything.
Everything.
So
Okay.
Nasik, consequently, when we're presented with something new that is based on science, what do we automatically do? Decide whether we what? Believe it or not.
Right.
Because when you believe, Malkiel, that means you
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Right. Right. Right.
So we decide when we're presented with information, and especially something that sounds new, that happens to be truth, we automatically are trained and entrained and programmed to decide right there whether we believe it or not. And it's based on what doctrine we were taught. And believe me, the vast majority of people are not clear on doctrine, exactly what the doctrine is. But if it sounds a little bit different, we do not judge it on the merit, Malkiel, of scientific knowledge or
Mm-hmm.
alchemical knowledge or metaphysical knowledge. We based it on religious beliefism.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10 reject it. But nothing in that Bible, on its highest level and on its purest level, nothing in that Bible is designed for you to believe. Nothing. On its lowest levels, it's designed for believers. But again, that was done with brilliant prescience to keep lookers and waiters and believers outside.
Akita.
Go ahead.
Uh, you talk about this believing concept. They had us believing that the blood of Jesus will save us. And when you look at the color red, red is the lowest vibration on the
Absolutely.
color spectrum.
Right. Absolutely correct. So this Nasik, all of this information, including the so-called name of Yahuwah, Yud-He Vav-He, corresponds to ourselves. And it tells the story, family, not of how we were born at a particular time, but how we emanated as divine beings, as star children, because the core of the star is dark matter, dark energy, or what we call melanin. See, we don't have a cosmic view. So without a cosmic view, we cannot understand cosmic things. And that Bible is a cosmic book.
Mm-hmm. Come on, Eitai.
So Yud He Vav He corresponds to the 4 stages. Well, not only does it correspond to the 4 stages of emanation, like we looked at before, it corresponds directly to the 4 stages of melanosome maturation or development. Stage 1 corresponds to the Yud, or the realm or world of Atziluth. Now, see, this is a template for everything. Stage 2, in the maturation of the melanosome, or the melanin producing cell, corresponds to Bria, or the letter He. Stage 3, in melanosome maturation or development, corresponds to the Vav, or Yetzirah, that stage, that realm. And 4, the final stage, corresponds to Isaiah. Now y'all know that's Isaiah, Isaiah. It means the same thing. And it corresponds to the final stage of melanin development, where you can see it in the material world. So this provides a cosmic or an alchemical or a mystical or a what word am I trying to find? A metaphysical, spiritual, or energetic aspect to the name Yahuwah. Everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
And so it corresponds to the body.
Slika,
Yes.
yes. It seems that you all are looking at something.
Yes. If people um, are on the computer, they can actually see my uh, my screen,
Oh, Beseda, how did they come in?
and I have my notes up there.
Beseda.
All right.
How do you get it on the computer?
We'll send you an invitation with the link on there, and you can get on. Do you want to
Eitai,
get on the computer
Eitai,
now?
Yeah, I was gonna get my laptop, bring it in here on my desk.
Okay,
I'll send it to Eitai.
Okay, very good.
Okay, Beseda, Toda.
All right. So, for those of you that are new, we've been stating and we've gone on to prove that we are not created beings. I'm going to restate that. It's very important that
Right.
we understand this. Melanated people are not created beings. It is only the non melanated Caucasoids, or what we refer to as aberrant man, or mankind, or humankind, meaning that we are the only humans, or human, or melanated people on this planet. We are divine, eternal beings, and we emanated from what? From the world of emanation, which is Atziluth. Do we see this to the right? Right here. Can everybody see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On my left, Atziluth, the world of emanation. How often have we been saying that word, Nasik?
I'm trying to send this thing, Eitai.
Okay. So that corresponds to the word Yud. It corresponds to the Father, or the masculine, and it corresponds to the aspect of conception and the aspect of the conscious will. It represents pure consciousness and is the idea or the archetype of the heavenly man. In Hebrew, it corresponds to the word neshama. Neshama. We're all familiar with that word. That is the creative breath. All right. And before it is exhaled, the second, the hay, corresponds to the world of creation, Bria, the world of creation, which is the mother, or the feminine aspect that does what? Combine or connect with its counterpart, the father. And it refers to the spirit or conception. And it corresponds to the word ruach, which is wind, the neshama, which is what? Exhaled. Are you all with me?
Okay.
Yetzirah corresponds to the vav, where what has been created by the what? Divine interaction and union of masculine and feminine, it begins to take form. It is the pregnancy where for 3 trimesters the son is formed in the womb, and it corresponds to the word nefesh, where we get soul from, the soul. And Asaya is the world of action and movement. In other words, the physical body, when it is born into the world and begins to move and act, and it's referred to as the daughter, meaning I act, and it's referring to the physical body, the actual physical body. Everybody with me?
Mm-hmm.
So when we get back to this word Eber, that is the word that is the root to Hebrew. Eber means what? Or Hebrew means what? Same thing.
One who crossed over, supposedly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the name is giving us the actual history behind how Eber got to the Americas. He crossed over. Peleg, his son's name, means divided. Joktan, his other son's name, and we'll get back to that. Genesis 25, Yoktan means river or water. So it's telling us that at some point, and we know as we research it, Nasik, we know that when supposedly Nimrod in the 11th chapter wanted to do what? Build the tower. Our people were known as tower builders. And Eber refused. And he left that general area. Now listen, that was the area that supposedly the languages were confused.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
so we just saw that this was the first language. It was the language of the symbols, and it was connected to what? The stars.
Right.
So how did Eber escape the confusion of the languages, and retain that one language unless he what? Quit the scene before all that happened. So the legend is, or the tale is, that Eber left. He was like, no, I'm not going to build these towers. And he left, preserving the language, preserving that one culture. Are you all with me?
Okay.
Of that particular time. And then what? Crossed over greater waters and landed in America. We're going to give you proof. Kalia was talking about this word Yahweh, meaning I am that I am, or as the scriptures, as it's translated, who was, who is, who shall come, right?
Right.
So when Moses in the allegory asked the name, people say, well, he didn't say Yahweh. Yes, he did, but he didn't say it like that. He said it like Kaliah said. Now we're talking about the Americas, Nasik.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Y'all ever hear this? Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya,
Yes.
I
Yes.
hey ya,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
heard that,
Mm-hmm.
huh?
Mm-hmm. Come on.
Eya,
Yeah.
Asher, Eya. He was saying,
Hey, yeah.
what no vowel
Mm-hmm.
points, Nasik.
Oh, right. Well, no vowel points, right?
And this is the Western Shemitic language that you were talking about.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You all gotta look
That's
at the video that Nasik sent out with the sister doing this, and when you hear that language,
right.
it's gonna move something in you when you hear it
Right.
spoken, like it's
Right.
like it. I mean, come on now. See, we speak Negro brew. We struggle with that just like we struggle with English, Nasik.
Yeah.
And Nasik talks about, and I can relate to him. He talks about we're trying to express these ideas, these inspirations, this intuitive knowledge that we get. Nasik, it's tremendously difficult to do it in English.
Tremendous. Yeah. It really is. It really is.
And it takes us, we'll send out one set of notes, and then we'll say that's not it. That's not expressing it. And it takes time in English to give it clarity, and we just hope y'all feel what we say because the
Yeah.
language Nasi is not getting it. It's not our language.
No.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it goes to prove that this language is spoken in symbols. Nasi is really not spoken with the tongue like that, but we can do it. It is to be understood what? Intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
Intuitively.
And once you understand the indigenous, some of the indigenous people, especially the Aborigines, some of the Aboriginal tribes do not allow their children from a very young age to speak and use their tongue because they want them, Nasi, to develop this intuitive or telepathic ability that is dormant
Right.
within all of us.
Right.
These languages that we're using, especially English, and especially the Hebrew as we know it, is imperfect
Absolutely right.
because the Hebrew as we know it is a copy of a copy of a copy.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we are to believe the tale, if we are to believe the tale that concerns Eber, and it's a tremendous amount of evidence that support this, an overwhelming amount of evidence. And you should start by looking at the video that the sister is giving.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and it's tremendously compelling information. So this Aya Esher or Aser or Esher Aya, that is the name, and even the Inky character that is based on Jacob or Yakub, his name is Aya.
Hey, yeah, right. Knock on.
Aya
Right,
in the Sanskrit.
right, right. Now, Eitai,
Uh-huh.
in one of Damon Barry's, matter of fact, I think it's the first, yeah, it's the very first one he did online. Anybody can go online and pull it up. The knowledge of the forever time, and he exactly says what you just said. They Aya became Yah.
Right. Absolutely.
That
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he said. Aya became Yah in the
Mm-hmm.
process.
Right. Yes.
So absolutely, Nasik. So
Aya,
this is making
Yah, yeah, Aya, not Yah.
God,
yes.
I can remember in the South that my grandparents, my grandparents were Cherokee.
Uh-huh.
And he used to talk about, the old folk tales, you didn't believe nothing,
Yeah.
but they would talk about how the old people would get around and talk in a certain language, and it would cause the element to change, and that's why the white man became so afraid and ruled out our languages
Hey,
and told us and threatened us with death if we passed it on.
Kalaya, I'm
Right.
getting ready to go right there. I'm headed there now. All right.
That's the same thing that happened to me. I was going to say that about the symbols
Yes.
that they showed us in a sign language that the Cherokee Nation that before the removal period had in the Carolinas.
Look. See, this is
And
coming together
let
perfectly
me
now.
let me say that when I see when I watch when I watched what Nasik sent me, I told Nasik intuitively when they started speaking a language, I connected with it. It
So
just
I did too.
when that sister started speaking, I connected with it. It was something in me that just
So
connected with that language that she was
the
speaking.
exact same thing happened to me. The exact same thing happened to me. And I had this in the study. I was waiting for this day. So we're going to get to it. We was talking about the divine feminine, and we're going to get to it now because this has to do, we're going to switch back now to the divine feminine because this has everything to do with the divine feminine. So we talked about, Nasik, the astral connection to the uh, the astral alphabet and its connection with the Hebraic alphabet.
Right.
So again, we've covered this before. The first aspect of Atziluth, Nasi, is what? You had it in your paper. It's fire, correct?
Fire, right.
Now watch this. See, this is going to connect us right into the divine feminine. The word for stars in the scriptures, and I see you pointed it out in that in that
Right, right,
revelation that you got is kokah,
right,
right?
right,
And
right,
and the root word is kava,
right, right, right,
which connects it with Eve. It connects it with other
Mm-hmm.
words, and it connects it with this word haya,
right.
haya. All right, we're gonna connect this all up today. So it it means to prick, penetrate, pierce, all right, to blister or to burn. Now see,
Yeah.
now I've been telling y'all now that when you look at the tarot cards, the feminine energy always has what? That penetrator, that sword.
Right.
Right? Watch this. And we touched on this before. This is the tarot card featuring the so-called goddess Isis. All right. Now, the biggest enemy of the United States to this day is named what?
ISIS.
It ain't got nothing to do with no terrorist group in the Middle East.
Right. Right. Come on.
It's got to do with the original Statue of Liberty. That's the black one.
Wow. That's right.
Here we go. Proverbs 18 and 21. Death and life are where?
And the power of the tongue.
And they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Isis was considered more powerful than 1,000 soldiers. This is the feminine energy now. And she was referred to as the clever-tongued one whose speech never fails. And in Isaiah, now again, see, Isaiah corresponds to the fourth realm, Asaya. And how often, Nasik, have we gone to the book of Isaiah recently to support everything that we've done? See, there are no coincidences. All of this corresponds if we understand our symbols and if we know our sign. Are y'all with me?
Yeah.
So it says, and he hath made, well, he is right. He's talking about it. Well, no, that's not right. We'll keep it like that. That he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand hath he hid me. Now see.
We just mentioned that earlier, right?
That's right. Now, a man can't hide a woman physically, but a woman can hide a man. And a woman can hide another. This is talking about the body. So we know this is not talking about, we know how this changed, Nasi, to the Father God, but this is referring to the feminine aspect.
Right.
And the word hid is the word kava. So I know I'm right.
Whoa.
I know
the
I'm
word
right.
hid is
The word hid here is kava.
wow.
And made me a polished shaft. Now we talked about the shaft and the rod, right? And the sheath yesterday. Now that's referring to the male, right?
Right.
And it's not his quiver, it's her quiver.
There you go. There we go.
Hath she hid me? And so it says of Isis, the feminine energy, more powerful than 1,000 soldiers. And so in Deuteronomy, when speaking of the time, Nasik, 400 years ago, where the sisterhood will what? Voluntarily bend the knee and relinquish their divine power during that slavery period, the question is asked, how should one chase 1,000? And two, 1,000 to flight except their rock, that's the sisterhood, had sold them.
Wow.
But of our restoration period, Leviticus says, and ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by what? The sword. 5 of you
Right,
shall
right.
chase 100, 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies
Yeah.
fall before thy sword. Not talking about no physical sword. And out
Right.
of her mouth goeth what? A sharp sword, that with it she should smite the nations, and shall rule them, but he shall rule them with what? The rod. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword. See, we know the 7 stars refer to this feminine energy because it's right there on the tarot star card, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're saying, brethren, that we all come from the stars, and we know that
That's
we all came from, everybody on here came from a mother,
absolutely.
we talk about the feminine energy. We talk about,
Everybody got a belly button, huh?
huh?
Right.
Everybody got a belly button, huh?
Everybody got a belly button. A woman preceded you. A woman preceded.
Wow.
So,
Eitai,
yes.
so now the so-called slogan or term Black Lives Matter has a whole nother concept, because see, it's not an organization. Black Lives Matter is an organism
That's correct. They trying to duplicate
created
it,
by,
brother.
yes, created by 2 melanated sisters.
That's correct.
That's a whole nother kind of power there, Mark.
Yes,
It
sir.
is.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So everybody see this, that this is the feminine energy. And I'm getting ready to show you all the ISIS that they're really afraid of. And that is the activation of this dark matter energy in the sisterhood.
Mm-hmm.
There will be 4 general effects. The first being action, the second conscious awareness, the third concentration or focus, as attention goes, where attention goes, energy flows, and the final, the manifestation or demonstration of power. You all have done this before. This is why they did this to you.
Right. Come on, Eitai. Mm-hmm.
They put that iron muzzle around your mouth for fear that that two-edged sword would lash out. Are you familiar with the spiked gag mask that slave women were required to wear for an entire generation? Come on, Nasik. What they afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
What other
Right.
people have they done this to?
Right.
No people on the planet. So Eitai,
Uh-huh.
so what we seeing here is that during this whole period of slavery, what appeared to the aberrant man is that he knew the significance and power that the sisters had. He, even though we had lost or had waned from the fullness of it, he could not take a chance to allow the women to have any say-so about anything, because if so, it would possibly reverse the whole condition that he was trying to activate.
That's correct. And we couldn't afford that either.
I hear you.
Because
right.
we had to go through that complete process for what? Healing. We had to go through. So that what?
Wow.
This fruit would be extended to us. And it has been. So they were required, family, to wear this for an entire generation until our native tongue was forgotten. And we know what that was. That was Eber. That was the language. That was that holistic language, Nasik.
That was it, right?
That was Eber. Until our native tongue was forgotten. It not only covered the mouth, listen, but had blades in the mouth to cut with even the slightest movement of the tongue. Do you know why? This is recorded. Sisters, you are on record for doing this. According to several captain's logs, the women were said to have the power to speak enchantments that would cause slave takers to drop dead on the spot. This is recorded history.
Wow.
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 Now, see, they got that sword. They don't know it.
Wow.
But when they activate theirs, they have that power to what? Activate ours.
Now, that's why I was saying, Eitai, let's go back to, now we're just going to jump back for a moment and we come right back. That's why I was saying the whole idea of the masculine concept of the Hebrew is incorrect. And I know that. And so now we are verifying that this whole Ur thing is more like what Kalaz was saying. When you turn it up down,
that's right,
upside down, we begin to what? Talk about the activation of yourself.
Not see. You actually have to turn it inside out.
You got to protect that.
Kalaya got it. You got to turn it inside out.
Yeah.
You remember we said that before.
Yeah. Major revelation here.
Yeah.
They would cause slave takers to drop dead on the spot. So they silenced them and took away the language and demonized all indigenous forms of worship and ritual. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. All that was demonized.
Oh, that was demonized, right?
Now we're gonna talk specifically now about the two symbols here that are always the staff or the rod and the two-edged sword, always represented in the possession of the feminine energy first. And we'll go back and look at the representations. Bear with me. Did I pass them? Hold on. Right here.
No, Abba, were you able to send me something?
Didn't send it to you.
I don't see it.
I sure sent it to you, Miss Surah.
No, I don't know. Do you have Shay Jacks 19 at the Gmail?
Yeah.
It's taking a little while. Speak up.
Yeah.
I'll check it again.
You want to see that?
So Nasik, we see here always when the feminine is featured, she is in possession of both the rod and the double-edged sword. And this relates scientifically, Malkiel, to the mitochondrial DNA.
Uh-huh.
The brothers don't have it.
Uh-huh.
This is a powerful activating force that connects them back easier to the source of power because they are the divine. The feminine is the divine source of power. Are y'all with me?
Yes. Can.
So, as we continue to look from a historical standpoint, now see, we're going to connect this right to the Americas. In the ancient language, the rod and what we refer to, what the Bible refers to as the rod and the sword, were referred to as the obia and the wanga. The obia is the magic of the secret or hidden light with special reference to acts. Now, you remember we said the activation, the first activation would be what? Action. Now, see, this is why I said to the sisterhood, I suggested begin to what? Bless yourself. Bless the immediate members of your family. And what? Bless everyone that is involved in this process.
In the process.
By
Absolutely.
doing so, you will act, right? And you will activate those, no doubt. Now, see, we're going to start to hear testimonies of this to the sisterhood that takes this to heart and begins to do it. By doing that, we are creating what? An energetic vortex.
Woo!
Are you all with me?
Yeah.
Can.
Yeah.
So this is what you all put down. All I'm saying is pick it back up again and start to act. It's time. The wanga is the verbal or mental correspondence to the same. Obia is the act. The wanga is the verbal or mental correspondence to the same. So as you grow in knowledge of these symbols, what will it do? It will begin to activate that power that is within you. And as your knowledge and consciousness do increase, so will the manifestation of this power.
Eitai, what is the obia? What is the Hebrew letters on that?
It's not actually Hebrew like we know. This is Western Hebrew.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Right?
Okay.
And hopefully, Nasik, I'll be able to find that out. But I do know that the OB in Ab refers to that serpent power of the tongue.
See, the reason I asked, I saw the word today, and that's why I wanted to double check it.
Right.
With the word that I got, but that's good. Okay.
And Nasik, this refers to Abaddon in
Ah, yeah,
In
okay,
the
okay.
Revelation,
Right,
the beast from the bottomless pit, or that is
right.
over the bottomless pit. So, of course, like we said, they demonize this. So they put it in the
Mm-hmm.
realm, they put your power in the realm of what? Black magic, Satanism, demonology,
Mm-hmm.
etc., and so on. The obia being the acts, and the wanga the words. So again,
Eitai.
this corresponds to the original language, which relate to what? Symbols, Nasik, that not only target the constellations and the star systems for what? That creative power. It moves those things because what you said, it is the people that I and the children of Israel are for what? So the zodiac
Sign of
don't
one.
control us. Guess what? We control the zodiac.
Zodiac, right,
That's why the woman,
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
that's why the woman in Revelation is riding the beast. Beast ain't riding her.
Hey,
Right.
Eitai,
Cain.
I think we got it here. I need you to take this word down. The word familiar spirits, and the number is 178.
You're right.
And 178 familiar spirits, and then look at the Hebrew that they reveal in modern Hebrew. They don't give you nothing, so we got to figure this out.
Now, see, you're right because I've looked at it. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. And I believe I have it somewhere, Nasi, but I'll take a look at it and we'll touch on it a little bit later. No, you're absolutely correct. So let's for a second look at the word familiar spirit. Familiar has to do with family. All it's
Mm-hmm.
talking about is that connection with the elders. And the
Mm-hmm.
sisters have it, Nasi, through the mitochondrial DNA. Much quicker access.
And that's Spanish, familiar.
Yes, magic is the management of all we say and do. Isn't that a language?
Mm-hmm.
So the vestiges of this powerful language, of this original language, is in what we do with letters. We spell them.
Right.
And
Right.
and the sisterhood are the only ones on this planet that can spell. Brothers too, but primarily the sisterhood. Melanated
Mm-hmm.
individuals are the only ones that can spell and that can truly curse or cuss. Don't we write in cursive?
Mm-hmm.
All attached to this original language that represented powers, certain powers that connect us below with what we have with the universe and the fiery waters, the Shemaim that we have inside of us, and the Shemaim above. As above, so below. Magic is the management of all we say and do, so that the effect, listen, is to change the part of the environment that dissatisfies us until it does so no longer. So, David, this is this new world that you were talking about where everyone shares. But this was when you read this book, the lies that our teachers told us, everybody should get that and read it. It tells you the truth about the advanced civilization that this Caucasian ran into in America, in the West. And it was just like the civilizations in Sumer and in the Indus Valley and everywhere melanated people were. Canals, clean streets, everybody dressed colorfully, clean, breath freshener, deodorant, intricate canal systems and sewage systems. Y'all with me?
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a real time example, and this is going to connect this to the Americas. This here is one of our ancestors, very powerful ancestors, called Nanny. And she was referred to as the Queen of the Maroons, the mother of all Jamaicans. Many in her community attributed Nanny's leadership skills to her Obeah powers. She lived from 1686 to 1755, and she is a Jamaican national hero, was well known as an 18th century leader of the Jamaican Maroons, very important term, Maroons. Much of what is known about her comes from oral history, as little textual evidence exists. She was born into the Asante people in what is today Ghana and escaped from slavery after being transported to Jamaica. The story about her is that she had land. I mean, her people had been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and she had land that was hers. So the colonizers came and tried to take her land. And she told them, no, I'm not giving up my land. Then, Amaria, they sent armed soldiers. And this is why she's famous. And she whipped that two-edged sword out of her mouth and turned back soldiers and bullets and stayed on that. Her people probably still got the land there, but they didn't bother her no more. So Malkiel, we don't need no Black Lives Matter or no political uh, movements or no bullets like that.
Right,
No
right,
weapon like that.
We
right.
start to activate these powers.
Yeah.
You couldn't put 10 policemen in a blender and pour them on one of us.
1680.
Guarantee you that. Maroon, listen, is defined as a very dark reddish brown color. Very important. Maroon also means to put ashore on a desolate island or coast. So you remember Eber crossed over to the New World. They also call a fugitive black slave a maroon or a maran in the jungles of the West Indies and Dutch Guyana. The word, here we go, Seminole from 1763 from the Crete Muskogean. And look at this, the word Simano. Remember, we just did what? Simeon, right? Someone needs to mute their mic. We're getting a lot of interference. Now again, that's coming through my
You
speaker.
don't have to. You don't have to mute because they're not hearing you.
Hello?
I don't even know where that's coming from.
Can y'all hear me?
Hey,
Y'all can hear me?
hey.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, it's coming through my speakers. They don't want me talking about this, but we're going to talk about it. So we talked about Simano or Simeon, right? Seminole. We talked about Simeon. Do y'all remember? Which relates to, you talked about the Western Shemitic, which relates to the word Shem or shame.
Sounds like
Yeah,
Nick.
I got it.
Okay.
All right. And it relates to the word Cimarron, but all with this word Simeon, which is related to the word, the Greek Simano, that is talking about the sign of the Son of Man. You all with me? Seminole is connected, and it's connected to this word maroon. All of this is going to make sense. The Black Seminoles are Black Indians associated with the Seminole people of Florida and Oklahoma. They are descendants, listen, of free Blacks and escaped slaves, Maroons, who allied with the Seminole groups in Spanish Florida. So if these individuals are Black, it's just like the story of Moses, right? Going or Yeshua going and hiding with the Egyptians.
Right.
They were melanated people, or Moses doing so, or Joseph and them people. You are with me? So this
Okay.
is the same. This is the same thing. Here it is, Nasik. This is Martin Luther King Jr. in his "I Have a Dream" speech. I don't know why we didn't catch this.
I was asleep.
But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the change of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. Listen, 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. The way that they tell us that the slave trade happened is counterintuitive to how things actually work. For sure, some individuals came over on some boats. But if you look at the census report, it ain't no way that number of people increased in that period of time unless some of us were over here and the evidence, the historical evidence is overwhelming. The
Right.
prevailing tides make it easier to go from the Americas back to the continent of Africa and Europe and that way to the east. It is less expensive. It is less difficult. It is less time consuming than to do it the other way around. So we had the story is not accurate. And the
Eitai,
evidence is there.
that's the point right there, that even though we studying this here, I get the feeling it is an uneasy feeling even among us on this line, less known
Right.
talking about
Right.
those
Yeah.
that have not, you understand?
I think.
That's correct.
But I don't have that feeling no more. I know within myself that was our land. And we was what? Oh, you understand? Because what you just read about Martin Luther King saying, exile in your own land, what land was he talking about?
Right.
Right.
He's talking about
He
America.
wasn't talking about Africa. He wasn't talking about Africa.
Right.
And I remember that in the scripture somewhere. I cannot find it. I get the feeling they done what? Removed it.
That's correct.
Because I remember reading that when I first came to Israel under Abba Shalid.
Right.
So maybe I'm gonna look up another word. Exile may be another word I can change, but we have some feelings about that because
Right.
again, religious experience that this
Yeah.
indoctrinated us and it activated something in us that is hard to let go of.
That's correct, Nasik. But look, the truth is the truth. So
Yeah.
Eitai.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that this is David. You mentioned that there were free blacks and slaves, and one of the places you mentioned was Oklahoma.
That's correct.
Well, we trace our ancestry in the Nelson family to Oklahoma, one of the central places, and in tracing it that way, we have not as yet uncovered any slave ancestors.
Look, brother.
So that's a testimony that we may be some of those who were free blacks in this land already. We haven't been able to find any slave ancestors on my father's side.
And look, I'm trying to get a picture from my aunt of my grandmother's sister, Nasik, and she is dressed in Indian garb from head to toe.
Yeah.
And on my father's side, I know this to be the case. My grandmother was very dark skinned, but had long, straight hair. Never went, I mean, she would go to the beauty salon. She never straightened her hair down her back. She would go to get it cut and clipped and trimmed. And I remember when her brothers had come here to visit one time. And these are one of my granduncles, right? And he came to the table. One of them came, her younger brother came to the table and had an apple cap, page boy cap, pulled all the way down, like low onto his eyes. And they were all sitting at the table, and my grandmother walked past and said, "Boy, take that hat off." And Amaria, his hair fell down past his shoulders, straight black, and they were all dark skinned. And I'm looking at it, I'm a little kid. I said, he looked. This is exactly what I said. I said, if he wasn't black, he would look like an Indian. To show us how my brain was. If he wasn't black, he would look just like an Indian. So I'm going to read
Eitai.
this 1960 period that you had mentioned is very important
Right.
because this was another elevation in consciousness for us.
Absolutely, Eitai.
It was another elevation in consciousness for us. And in 1965, James Baldwin made this statement in his speech, The American Dream and the American Negro. And he said, and I quote, in the case of the American Negro, from the moment you are born, every stick and stone, every face is white. Since you have not yet been seen, rather a mirror, you suppose you are too. It comes as a great shock around the age of 5, 6, or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to see Gary Cooper killing off the Indians. And although you are rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians are you.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And here are
Mm-hmm.
some of I just added a few pictures of the Native Americans here.
You know, I just never, ever since I've been in the kingdom, and no disrespect, I'm thankful that I was brought to this level of consciousness where it allowed me to be where I am now. But I've never accepted and believed that no white people came to Africa with no rowboats and took 150 of us at a time till they took the majority of us out here. That's how we
Right.
were this up here.
Right.
I
All
say,
of these do that. I just never accepted that. Couldn't understand.
I say, big problem for me. But you go along, you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And
Right.
you figure that somewhere down the road, you will get more clarity on it. But it never happened.
Right.
Well,
Eitai.
you know that Rome Bennett wrote before the Mayflower, showing how blacks had come before the Mayflower, and
Correct.
Ivan Van Sertima wrote they came before Columbus.
Columbus,
So
correct.
two scholars have written testimonies.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, I mentioned this at the vet center to one of the vets, and he said we we couldn't have did that. We weren't here. We didn't know how to sail.
Right.
We couldn't have, So we've been brainwashed into really accepting the fact that we are, and being proud of being the ancestors of slaves. But all of us were not. I mean,
That's correct.
some of our ancestors could well have been slaves, but some of them, most of us, we have some ancestors here who were here long time before that period they're talking about.
Absolutely. And I really feel that. So
A coach, Emma now, she called me a few minutes ago and she mentioned that in Jamaica, there's a term, Eitai, what you yell about, obia, and she was saying that was a term that was used in Jamaica. They were very, very fearful of that term because
yes,
it
sir.
had the power to invoke, cause serious problem to happen to people.
That's correct.
And,
Let's finish this off. This is the last little part, so we'll let that lead us into the close. Because
okay,
yeah, we gonna get into this. Historical documents. This is Nanny of the Maroons. Refer to her as the rebels, old Obeah woman. Following some armed confrontations, colonial officials reached a settlement for peace. They had the arms, she didn't have them. They legally granted Nanny and the people now residing with her and their heirs a certain parcel of land containing 500 acres in the parish of Portland. They left that lady alone, now see.
Yeah, yeah.
I had seen a black woman slave as I came through the house, who was cooking dinner, and the poor creature was cruelly loaded with various kinds of iron machines. She had one particular on her head, which locked her mouth so fast that she could scarcely speak, and could not eat or drink. I was astonished and shocked at this contrivance, which I afterwards learned was called the iron muzzle. Why would they go through this? They scared of somebody biting them? I mean, why would they go through this?
Mm-hmm.
Obeah, Obi, from the
Obi,
word
right.
Obi. Now, I want you all to connect this now to Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Obama. And we're going to break that down. Obeah, a kind of witchcraft originating in Africa and practiced in the West Indies. The origin of the word Obeah, sorcery, witchcraft among blacks. That's that sword. A thing or mixture left as a charm to cause sickness or death. Now we're going to connect this, like I said, later on to the Hebrew language and then to the Bible. But again, this is what they are afraid of. This is a comic book called Obia in America. And you see one
Mm.
of our signs, the skull and the crossbones, and the aberrant man and woman looking in terror.
Mm-hmm.
It is connected to another form,
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
absolutely, a more ancient form called Jedi or Jedi is an Egyptian term for the ancient sect of serpent priests. These are the individuals that had knowledge of wave power and sound power.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all with
Mm-hmm.
me? The scripture
Okay.
says that a word, that the ancient scripture says that a word can what? Break a bone. And I'm telling you, we had that power. So when we see the Star Wars episode, it's talking about our powers. It is all in there. Yoda is the word, Yoda is the word, Hebrew word, yada. Darth Vader is the Hebrew word, da'ath. Obi-Wan Kenobi, who is the main character that started all of the adventure tale out, is based on the Obi and the Wanga. His name is Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Come on, shows.
They're trying to tell you that he is the son of this ancient knowledge. He is not. The terms Obi
Mm-hmm.
and Wanga are African diasporic terms that occur in the book of the law, the secret text of Thelema. Also, the mantras and spells, the Obeah and the Wanga, the work of the wand. Didn't we see the wand or the rod in the hand? And
Mm-hmm.
the work of the sword. This is our stuff, y'all. This is our stuff. We got to take it back. These he shall learn and teach. So, this part of it is going to connect it to the scriptures. It's going to connect it to all of the other legends of these mythic heroes and mythic supernatural individuals, godlike individuals that roamed the earth at one time. It is talking about our ancient beloved ancestors. We're going to make this connection the next time, but for now, we're going to end.